Macca's guides.
Hey everyone, Macca here with my video guide for the casting of Frank Stone. In this video, I'll take you through all of the collectibles in the game, including the 12 trinkets, 12 relics, and 30 artifacts. In the top right corner, you can notice an ongoing counter of the collectible we're going for. In the top left corner, you'll see our current chapter, Chapter 1. And in the bottom right corner, you'll see the name of the collectible we're going for, in this case, Trinket 1 Iridescent King. Generally speaking, if you want the best chance at getting all of the collectibles in a single playthrough, you'll want to make sure that you make the good decisions as well as pass all of the QTEs when possible. The first collectible in the game can be grabbed very easily as soon as you gain control of your character for the very first time. Run forward and a little bit to the right to find a small crack that you can squeeze through. After you squeeze through it, you can find a box on the ground, interact with it, and open it up to find the Iridescent King inside. I will try to limit story spoilers as much as possible in this video, but obviously sometimes I'll have to explain something that might give some stuff away. You'll end up inside of a building and you'll go through a door, noticing a pallet blocking the door in front of you. Instead of going through that door, look in the cabinet on the right-hand side of the room. Shake it in order to drop something. This is our first artifact of the game, and this is a champion artifact, as the artifacts are split into 3 categories. This one being the staff files. A little bit later on in Chapter 1, you'll navigate down a ladder into the furnace tunnels, and there are a couple of collectibles to grab while you're down here. Once you gain control of your character, you actually want to basically spin around and start heading behind yourself in the opposite direction the game is trying to make you go. After you spin around, just follow the wall, and you'll notice the hallway turns to the left. As you turn around the corner, you'll notice an open door. You can just head through this door, and on the ground inside of the room, you'll find a box. Open up that box for our second trinket of the game, the wooden horse. From the previous collectible, let's just head back to the main route and start following the signs for furnace access. They're yellow placards on the wall, and there really isn't too many locations to go. There are some wrong way turns, but generally you have to go in the correct direction. After you come around a corner, you'll head up a small staircase and through a narrow gate. And if you look on the wall on the right-hand side as you approach this next hallway, you should notice some symbols in a cross on the wall that you can interact with for the next artifact. Last but not least, for Chapter 1, you'll come to this hallway and there's a crawl space directly in front of you. Do not go through there. That is the main path, and once you go through there, you're locked in the next room. Instead, jump over the pipes on your right-hand side to find your first relic, the Hillbilly. Also, once you do beat the game for the first time, you'll unlock a mode called the Cutting Room Floor, which can be used to mop up collectibles a little bit more easily. We then start Chapter 2, where you take control of Madison, and you'll have an option of picking up a hitchhiker, Linda. I'd recommend you pick them up if you want the best advantages for later on in the game. But once you gain control of her inside of the manor, you can head up the right-hand staircase in order to find some sheet music. This isn't actually the collectible we're after, but we will need it coming up for something else. Once you are at the top of the first steps, go to your left and then head up to the top floor, and you'll notice a door on your right-hand side. Enter inside of this door, and here you'll notice, I believe, a fireplace as well as a piano. But more importantly, on the far left of the room, near some of the windows, you can find your next artifact, a part of the Storyteller series. This one is called the Estate Letter.
Hey, I think I figured out why there's no one here. What?
From the previous collectible, still inside of the manor, we can now interact with the piano. Make sure you grabbed the sheet music in the previous clip, which was in the landing between the staircases. If you have this sheet music and you interact with the piano, you can play a specific series of notes which open up a secret door as follows. Once this secret door opens up, you can just follow through the hallway. At the bottom of the steps, you'll find another door, and through this door, you should be able to find your second relic of the game, the Huntress. You'll also receive an achievement or trophy called Motif if you did play the secret piano music.
Okay. Kid must have had creepy
A little bit later on, you'll make it into a room with Stan and Linda, and you'll have to wait for Augustine in this room, and there are 2 collectibles. Just make sure you grab them in the correct order. Once you gain control of Madison, you should find the Champion Artifact 4, the Epic of Gilgamesh, as a book in front of you. Make sure you swipe through all of the pages for it to count. And also, don't be worried that we're collecting Champion 4 before we get Champion 3. The collectibles generally are not in order in this game. And then the next collectible you can grab is Murder Mill Artifact 1, the movie poster, which is mandatory for game progression. It's inside of the cabinet next to you, and once you open it up, the story will move on.
Inside a cabinet. Hey, either of you heard of Murder Mill?
Moving on to Chapter 3, after a couple of scenes, you'll be tasked with going into town to fix the camera, and here you'll want to choose the Curiosity Shop when given the prompt between the 2 locations. I don't know if this is mandatory, but you can get everything done in one go if you do this selection. Once inside of the Curiosity Shop, which is automatic if you choose that direction, you can find 2 collectibles. On your left, as soon as you gain control of the character, you can find the Storyteller Artifact 2, the Lawyer Letter. Additionally, in the shop in the opposite corner, you can find your 3rd relic of the game called the Trapper. Make sure you grab both of these before you talk to Linda or before you leave the store.
Imagine cuddling up to that at night.
After leaving the Curiosity Shop, you'll end up going to the drugstore anyways to grab the milk. Once you gain control of your character inside of the drugstore, take a look to your left-hand side, sitting up on the bar to find Murder Mill Artifact number 2, the Lost movie poster. On the opposite side of the store, you can also find the milk that you're after, but before you grab it, make sure you grab Trinket 3, the Waterlogged shoes, which are on your left near the ground on one of the shelves. Make sure you open it up and grab it before you move on. And there's one more thing you might want to do before you grab the milk. Instead of grabbing the milk, go to the far end of the store. Here you can find an arcade machine, and you can earn the 8-Bit Hero achievement/trophy for getting a high score on the arcade machine, which is 5,000 points. This does take about 4 or 5 minutes, but all you'll want to do is hold the shoot button, dodge the incoming bullets, and use the red barriers for protection. Once you beat 5,000, the achievement or trophy unlocks. We now move on to Chapter 4. You'll eventually take control of Linda in kind of the open area of the manor. And directly in front of you when you spawn, you should be able to find a large portrait just above the fireplace. If you interact with that, you should be able to look to the bottom of it to find a nameplate, which you can then push on as a secret button to reveal a secret room. Go ahead and open up that secret room to head inside. You'll find some cameras, which I believe are part of the story, but more importantly for this video, we can find Storyteller Artifact number 3, the blueprints on the desk.
It's like every room in the...
Just a little bit later on, you'll work your way up the stairs with Stan and Madison, and at the top of the stairs, you'll notice a large gate. And next to that gate, you can see a portrait with a table. On that table, you can pick up Champion Artifact number 6, Face of Evil. There is something specific about this one. You will have to flip through all of the pages for it to count, so make sure that you get the little notification that you unlocked it. And again, don't be worried that this one may seem out of order. This video shows them in the order you can get them, but the order in the menu is a little bit different. You'll then start Chapter 5, and somewhere near the beginning there will be a scene in the garage, and after a small conversation you'll take control of Hame in that garage. Before you talk to anyone, there are 2 collectibles you'll want to grab. Basically just off in front of you, a little bit to the right, there's a desk right next to Robert, and here you can find 2 pieces of paper. You will need to interact with both of the pieces of paper individually in order for this collectible to count, the old newspaper article. Still in the garage, before you talk to anyone, you'll want to turn around and locate the laundry machine. On top of the laundry machine, you can find Murder Mill Artifact number 4, the Oracle of the Omniverse. Before finishing in the garage, you can also find a cassette tape and then play that cassette tape in the cassette player, but eventually you'll talk to Linda on the couch to go to the next scenes. Always make sure that you flip through all of the pages for the collectible to count. In this clip, I'll show the whole thing, but in the future I may skip ahead a few seconds after I go through the pages. The next thing you'll need to do is decide between two paths in the game, the climb path or the cross path. And unfortunately, each one of them does have a collectible. However, in this game, it's incredibly easy to use the cutting room floor feature after you beat the game to revisit and grab any collectibles you missed. So don't worry, it's not as annoying as the quarry where you had to redo the entire game for one collectible. So for this one, we'll choose the climb path, and as soon as we climb the fence, directly in front of us, you should notice a gap through the rocks on the left, and as you go through that gap, you can notice Trinket 6, the mother-daughter ring on the ground. Again, this is another one where the number system is a little bit out of order. And opposite to the climb path is the cross path. Again, feel free to grab both of these using the cutting room floor feature once you beat the game. But for Trinket 5, the tattooed middle finger, make sure you choose the cross path, and then you'll learn how the balancing feature works as you balance across this rock to get to the other side where your friends are waiting. And then after you do that first little balance beam, you'll go across this area, and instead of dropping down, find another balance beam connecting these two kind of shelter roofs. And if you balance across this next beam, you'll make it to the other side. You'll notice a trinket box on the ground on the right, and here you can find Trinket 5, the tattooed middle finger. Make sure you grab this either through chapter select or on your first time through the game. After taking one of the two paths, you will end up inside of the storm drain. As you walk forward, you'll see some yellow graffiti that says, "This way, fellow traveler," and you'll follow Robert. But instead of going down the hall forward, take your first available left-hand turn. And here you should notice a small crack in the wall that you can squeeze through. If you squeeze through here, look on the ground directly in front of you to find Relic 4, the Wraith.
Who would have left this here?
Additionally, in the storm drain, using that same landmark as a reference point, you'll go from that graffiti down the path and do not go to the very end. Instead, this time look to the right-hand side, and you'll see a small metal grate that has a hole in it. You should be able to hop through this grate and then go through the door in front of you. Here, you'll be able to find the casting shed key. This is a key that you will need later on when we're trying to get Trinket 4. Make sure you grab this key and then proceed all the way to Trinket 4 if you are using Mission Replay. You'll then end up outside taking control of Linda and looking for the door to the furnace chamber, which is technically directly in front of you. Now, instead, we're going to go grab Trinket number 7, and this is our first collectible that has a condition. That condition is that in Chapter 1, Sam did not break the crowbar when trying to enter into the storm drain. If you were successful in Chapter 1, which I hope you were, it's the easiest QTE in the game, you'll be able to take Linda here, go to the storm drain to your right to pick up that crowbar. It won't work if it was broken at the beginning of the game. Now that you have that crowbar, you should be able to go kind of across this mill yard and find this door that is cracked open but without a doorknob. Use the crowbar to open it up and gain access inside. Finding a trinket on the ground, this is Trinket 7, the wooden Oni mask. We then take Linda and go inside of the furnace room. Our objective here is to go down the ramp and talk to Chris. We're going to skip that objective because I believe it takes you to the next scene. So instead of talking to anyone, go past them and to the right. Here you'll find a small staircase. Go up that staircase and to the right to find a small squeeze area. Squeeze through between the pipes, and on the ground in front of you, you should find a gear. This is an item that we'll need, but we're going to use this item right away. Don't worry, it's not something you have to carry with you. Go ahead and turn around and squeeze back through the pipes, and then head backwards in the direction you came. You probably noticed where this gear could go, but kind of at the top of this ramp, there is a console that is missing a part, and that part is the gear that we just picked up. So once you place that gear inside of this console, you can rotate your stick in order to rotate the handle, and then the handle will allow you to get the trinket box to move towards you on the platform. Step onto the platform and grab the trinket box for the Blighted Rat. There will be a small fight between some of the characters that results in you taking control of Chris, with Robert and Hame on your side. And you'll come into this giant room with a door in front of you that says the casting shed or the casting furnace. Now, instead of going through that door, which we will go through in just a bit, head to the right and then down the hallway. At the very end of the hallway, you'll see a small hole you can crouch through, which you'll do, and on the ground on the left side, you can find Relic 5, known as the Clown.
Why is it always clown?
Now I'm going to rewind a bit, and we are still in that room. Your objective here is to find the machine shop, and instead of doing that, go through the door directly in front of you, which is labeled Casting Foundry. We're going to use the key that I showed you earlier on in this video that we found in the storm drain to open up the door directly in front of us. Once we're inside, go up the stairs on your left and interact with the pallets in order to kind of move them, and then interact with the red toolbox to move it here. Once all of that is set up, you should be able to jump on the toolbox to get up onto the ledge, and then use that ledge to get around the edge, and this should lead you to a ladder, which you can drop down, but more importantly, it'll lead you to a couple of jumps that you can do across those kind of shelves or pallets I was talking about earlier. Once you jump across them, you should notice a trinket box on the right-hand side on the ground, and here, if you pick it up, you'll find the iridescent head. This one is one of the ones that's out of order. This is labeled as Trinket 4, even though I think we have 7 or 8 of them already now. Last but not least, for Chapter 5, you'll do a bunch of puzzles that eventually gain you access into a boxcar. This is known as the lair. You'll be given the task to explore the lair. There's a jar you can examine, which does fast forward the scene. So before you do that, as soon as you take control of Hame here, interact with the book on the desk in the very middle of the room, making sure to flip through all of the pages. This is Champion Artifact 5, known as Weapon Designs. We now head back to Chapter 6, taking control of Madison in the atrium and unlocking the stairway to the top floor. Chapter 6 is kind of short, but very dense with collectibles, so let's make sure we grab all of them. Once we are able to head all the way upstairs, in the far left corner, you'll find Relic 6. We'll call this one the Legion. There are 2 more collectibles up here. So on the top floor of the atrium, in the middle, between the couches on the table, you can also find the mill artifact number 3. This is the Fanzine review. You may have to flip to both pages for it to count. And then we'll put that down, and up here there is one more collectible kind of near the windows. You can find Mill Artifact 5, the Deed of Sale. I believe this is the budget for the film, and just put it down in order to unlock it. Now, still in Chapter 6, you'll make it through the big metal gate. A little spoiler alert as to the solution. It is house, tree, and then hammer. Once inside, you'll be in the sanctum, and you'll take control of Linda. There are a lot of collectibles you want to grab here, and you want to do them in a specific order as to not lock yourself out. The first one you can grab is the statue, pretty much directly in front of you and slightly to your right. Make sure you grab that. And then you can move towards the middle of the room, and on the table, you can find the Storyteller Artifact 4. It's the fiction book named Fold of Fear. Make sure you go through all of the pages in order for it to count. After putting the book down and making sure it unlocked, let's go ahead and grab the Riot broadcast. It's in the corner of the room, and you want to interact with the pedestal here. Doing that will play a radio broadcast, and once you back out of the pedestal, it should trigger. From the Riot broadcast, go to the far corner of the room from where we entered. On the ground, find a trinket box. Inside, find Trinket 9, Victor's Soldier. Last but not least, in this room, we will grab the broken Super 8 Murder Mill artifact number 7. Doing this will end the scene in this room. So you're going to interact with the table here in the corner. This will allow you to get this artifact, but then it will start the story up, and it will shoot you into Chapter 7 right after.
There's no way. It can't be.
We now move on to Chapter 7. You'll take control of Linda. You'll be separated from the other characters that are with you here. You will have a camera, and you'll use that camera in order to fend off Frank Stone, and then you'll power up a scissor lift, which will allow you to escape the area and join up with the others. After you ride that scissor lift, go ahead and hop across the train cars, and here you'll find the rear exit, and you'll want to go halfway down the stairs through the rear exit, making sure Linda survived, of course. If she didn't, you'll have to replay that part of the chapter in Chapter Select to get this section. But as you get halfway down the stairs, notice a balance beam to your right. Go across it, finding a trinket box at the end of the path with diamond cufflinks inside. You'll also want Linda to be alive for future collectibles. We now move on to near the beginning of Chapter 8, where we'll take control of Madison wandering through the halls. As a mandatory part of the gameplay, you'll need to find this ramp that leads into a greenly lit room. And before you go down that staircase, look to the left of it, and you should be able to find a Storyteller artifact known as the Shrine. I'm not sure if you do have to look up and down on it for it to count, but make sure it does before you leave. A little bit later on, Linda and Sam will be walking through the hallway, and to cut a long story short, Sam will feel weak and fall to the ground. You'll be given an option to look through his pockets, and you have to choose Diary. You'll need this for a later collectible. There will also be 2 QTEs, and you need to pass both of them. As Linda, you'll then walk into the archives room, which is filled with collectibles, so let's make sure we grab all of them, and make sure you grab them in order, because if you interact with a certain one, it cuts the scene short. As you enter, look directly to your left to find the t-shirt. Across the hall from the t-shirts, amongst the shelves, you can also find the fake prop arm. After you grab that, go 1 shelf deeper and across the hall to find relic number 7 on the ground, known as the Nurse.
Just when I thought things couldn't get weirder.
Couple more collectibles to go. After you put the Nurse down, walk to the end of the hallway and turn to the right. Here you'll find the Flawed lamp. Make sure you interact with that before you interact with the desk. Last but not least, you can interact with the desk at the end of the room. This will trigger a cutscene to end the scene, but in the cutscene, you'll get 2 collectibles. The first one is pretty much automatic. It's Murder Mill artifact number 9, the alt movie scene, and I believe this will be your last Murder Mill artifact, getting you an achievement or trophy. However, if you grabbed Sam's diary during the earlier sequence and you did not get caught in Chapter 8 just before you entered the room, the cutscene will be a little bit longer and have an extra scene in it where you'll also grab the Logan Chen letter. Now, early in Chapter 9, you'll take control of Linda, who's been separated from the others. Immediately as you take control of her, you'll squeeze through a wall in front of you and then go through a door on your right to end up in a room with a bunch of lockers. Go ahead and turn to the right to crawl underneath some of those lockers to end up in a small side area. This side area has a cabinet. You can open the cabinet in order to find an optional key, but this key item is required for the collectible. Once you have the key, head back through the lockers to the other side, and then you'll go along the main story path, which is to squeeze between the wall and this set of lockers. After you squeeze through here, you should notice even more lockers directly in front of you, with one of them being a slightly different color than the rest. Interact with this locker and use the key to open it up, finding champion artifact number 7, Grandmother's Letter, inside.
Whoever's locker this was.
Now, in an effort to get you as much as possible in a single playthrough, you'll use Linda to clear out a steam room. That'll open up a pathway that lets you go down some stairs and through a door. And after you go through those doors, you'll end up at a little bit of an intersection, and you can take a turn to the right-hand side. Here, finding a dog collar on the ground with the name Merlin. Check out that name and then put it back down in order to unlock the Bad Dog achievement/trophy. Only about 30 seconds to a minute later, you'll crawl underneath some piping in order to make it further into the tunnels after clearing out that steam room. Once you stand up, you'll see a doorway in front of you. You can go through it and turn to your left, and then take another left. Here you may notice a ladder. You do not want to take that ladder. That ladder ends the scene and progresses the story. Instead, go through the door nearest that ladder. It should open up while the second door will be locked. But if you go through the first door, you should notice a crawl space. Crawl through that space in order to get out of the other side. And as you get out of the other side, on the desk in front of you on the right, you should find Champion Artifact 8, Frank's Journal. Making sure to flip through all of the pages for the progress to count. Feel free to check your collection menu. Now, after grabbing the previous collectible, if you go to the end of the hall inside of the room, you'll notice that I believe it's an old door is leaning against a larger door opening, and you can move this door to reveal a secret lair inside. It does say your fate changed, although I actually don't know how this changes the story later on. But at the end of the lair, you can find relic number 8, the Doctor. Now, Chapter 10 and Chapter 11 are extremely short and don't offer any new collectibles. However, Chapter 12 does, and they are all pretty close to each other. So, kind of near the beginning of Chapter 12, you'll take control of Madison, and you'll enter into the bedroom. You may notice that there is a toy box, and that is kind of one of the only things you can interact with in this room. So we'll need to find a key for this toy box, and that key is found inside of the collectible Storyteller Artifact 9, the Grimoire page. It's going to be in this book near the corner of the room, and as you flip through the pages, the key will fall out, and you'll grab the collectible.
That's not boring. So she could...
Now that we got the key from the previous collectible, we'll use it in the toy box to open up a secret door in the bedroom. Don't worry, this is a mandatory part of the game, so you'll have to figure it out on your own. But once we do open up that secret path, we can grab a couple of our next collectibles.
Why not?
Head down the stairs to the very bottom and through the door. If you were to go to the right, you would progress the story, so instead we're going to go to the left and explore the hallway. On the left, directly in front of you, you should find a tape recorder, and if you interact with it, you'll find the champion artifact number 9, known as the session tape. You don't have to listen to the whole thing for it to count, by the way. Feel free to back out when you're ready. Luckily, we're not done yet. In this same hallway, head down a little bit and keep an eye out on the right-hand side, about halfway through, and you should notice a relic on the desk. This one is known as the Twins, probably the relic that is the most fun. And last but not least, in this hallway, continue forward, looking on the right-hand side to find a trinket box. Inside, finding Trinket 11, the Sacrificial Knife. We then move on to Chapter 13, where we take control of Sam inside of the tunnels, and we have the camera in our hand. You'll see that the monster is in front of us, and as we approach it, pull out your camera and take it out. Obviously, if you fail this section, not good things happen, so you do have to be successful in fending off Frank Stone for the first time once you're down here. After you do fend him off, look to your right-hand side, and you should notice a little gate that you can jump through, and you want to jump through here. You'll hear some screaming in the background, but after you jump through, look on your right-hand side to find Rellik 10, the Spirit. We then move on to the final chapter of the game, chapter 14. For me, I have Linda and Madison alive after escaping the movie screen, and instead of going through the door on my right, I'm going to go down the hallway and around the corner to find a trinket box with my final trinket, the Blacksmith's hammer. In certain situations, you may be controlling Madison instead of Linda, but I'm unsure of how every branch in the game works. But after you do get that trinket, go ahead and go inside of the room, and your objective will be to repair the generator before the time runs out. Luckily, we do have a little bit of extra time that we'll use to grab the collectible ID card for our final champion artifact, which is located on the table there on the right-hand side. Now, the next two collectibles do have a condition, but luckily it's pretty easy. Somebody needs to survive the manor, whether it's Linda, Madison, or Sam. One of them has to make it out alive. Use the cutting room floor option if for some reason you don't have that done. But as you're going through the woods, near the end of the woods, you'll notice that there's a fire on your left. Instead of going to the fire, look at the tree stump directly in front of you to find your final Storyteller artifact, the Bloodied Ring. And again, instead of going to the left, look to the right-hand side, and at the end of the path, you should notice a door. But walk straight at the door and don't go around it. Interact with the door to open it up, finding Relic 11, the Trickster, on the ground. And this is the part of the video where I'll also be a little bit annoying. If you found it helpful, do drop a like and share the video with a friend. That's super appreciated. Additionally, I do have a Patreon and have enabled super thanks down in the YouTube comments for anyone who wants to go above and beyond to support the channel. Last but not least, our final relic is automatically given to us upon completion of the game. It's Relic 12, the champion, and it shows up after the credits. And that's that, all 54 collectibles in the casting of Frank Stone. Thanks for watching. Special thanks to everyone on Patreon for supporting the show. I'll see you next time. Peace.